Hi, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Frequently Asked Questions with Rival Mind. My name is Andrew Moment. I'm here with Harley Helmer.
Hey there.
Today we are talking about podcasts. Harley, what are the benefits? How can I implement one? And kind of what is the best way to market one?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's get started with the benefits of podcasts. What immediately comes to mind?
Yeah, so there are three major benefits in my mind. One, growing and maintaining an audience, brand awareness, and then customer retention and engagement. Those are the three that come to my mind. That's the way we use podcasts or shows. And it's a really effective tool for any business that's looking to do one of those three things.
One of the words I often hear when it comes to podcasts are thought leadership. Like, how can a podcast build thought leadership for a company?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're in a very innovative space in search engine optimization and web development. And so if you're in a space where you're constantly looking up the latest topics, you're staying on top of how the industry is changing, and you're looking to be innovative, the ability for a podcast to penetrate through all the noise and share your thoughts and your aspirations and your techniques on how you're handling the changes in your industry really gives you the edge, makes you look like an expert, and really pursues the visage of thought leadership.
Yeah, and thinking about even taking it another step further, prospective clients. So these are clients that you might be courting, selling to. How can a podcast help potentially convert potential customers?
Yeah, so I think the number one way that at least we've seen podcasts work in that regard is it really makes you look like you know what you're doing. A lot of our clients and prospective customers, they want to know that we're using the latest techniques. We know what's going on with the big Google and everything that's happening in our industry. The way that we can make sure that our prospective customers and clients know that we're on top of it is by having a podcast or a show that talks about the latest and greatest in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it builds authority right away for a customer that's interested in a vendor or a company.
Right.
Going and looking them up on social media and seeing, wow, these guys do a podcast, and then checking that out could build instant authority.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
One last question I was going to ask here is one thing, not just external clients, internal clients. How can a podcast keep internal clients or current clients engaged?
Yeah, I think internal clients or customers that you're already working with, it does great to know for those clients that you are displaying things that you know.
Yeah.
Very similar to external clients or potential customers that you're courting. This helps keep your current clients or customers engaged with what's going on in your business.
Yep.
We do this a lot with anything that's new or going on in the SEO industry. We're always talking about it. We're talking about how we're implementing it in our processes. And we're talking about how our clients are being affected by those changes. And so for our customers and other companies' customers to be able to see that their vendor is applying changes and techniques to a service that they're being provided, it's encouraging, and it helps those customers feel even more confident that their vendor is doing what's right.
Yeah, so there's definitely some strong benefits of a podcast, obviously. Thinking of, is it right for my business? Now, we focus just on the benefits, so obviously there's things like the time and the investment just to get it started and do it. But how about, is it right for my business? Should I have one? What are some of the thoughts that someone should consider if they're like, I'm not sure if I should start a podcast or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the first things that you consider is what is the target audience, and is that audience actively looking for podcasts? Are there any other podcasts in your space that are doing it right that you could potentially model your podcast after? Because you don't necessarily have to be first. You don't have to be brand new. You don't have to be the best. You just have to offer the most value and be the most relevant. And so if you have an audience that's receptive to podcasts or shows of any kind, really, then you do have the potential to go and create a show, create a podcast, create an avenue to get your word out to customers, to potential clients. That'll be effective.
Yeah, I think of an industry too of defining the audience wrong. Maybe like I think of hunting is a good one. There's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of really good famous hunters that create content. And potentially if your audience was wrong, maybe you're creating content towards maybe a beginner,
right,
or someone that's just getting into it versus maybe potentially the seasoned hunter that might know a lot of information. That was just kind of the first example that came to mind just now. But potentially that could be an issue. If you define your audience wrong, you could potentially lose the people that are interested in your content from listening because like, oh, I don't I already know this, right? If it's introductory.
Right. Yeah. And as far as businesses are concerned, you want to line up your podcast content and your talking points and maybe even guests with whatever topic is going to align with your business goals the best. Our business goals are to onboard more clients so that we can offer SEO services, web development services to grow their businesses. And so if we're not constantly offering tips and tricks and business best practices for SEO and strategies that we use that work all the time, we're not hitting the target market. We're not hitting marketers who are looking to grow their business or who need to invest in SEO or whatever it might be. So framing your content and the topics that you're talking about around whatever your business goals are or whatever the business goals of your preferred clients would be is what you really should be looking at.
Yeah, that's a good way to sum up. So for the, is it right for me? If you have something to say or you're an expert on something, which you likely are, a podcast is a great option to get your information out there. And as you talked about the benefits, to be at the beginning, to be an authority, a trusted source.
Right.
Podcast is a great way to do that. So benefits, they're important.
Yep.
I decide I should get one. What's the best way to get it out there? How can I get my podcast to my listeners? And then potentially, second part of that question, how could you potentially repurpose some of that content, maybe for social media, things like that?
Yeah. So luckily, the podcasting scene has exploded over the last few years. There's like 2 million something plus different podcasts on the internet right now. So there are all the major streaming platforms you can do podcasts on. There are even podcast specific platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. All of those streaming platforms offer the ability to put podcasts out, and that's for non-video. One of the things that we have done here at Rival Mind is we've taken our podcasts and we've shot them with video. So we can utilize the world's second largest search engine, YouTube, and put clips on YouTube for people to watch as well. So we have the ability to capture the streaming platforms audiences, the YouTube audience, which is the largest audience in the world, and then also repurposing content, which is what you mentioned briefly, taking clips out of that podcast that are maybe 60 seconds, 30 seconds, just a good little blip of information, and sharing that stuff on social media is great.
I think that's a great point you said, Harley, that you could take a podcast, film video, take clips of that, put a clip on Facebook, a clip on Twitter, Instagram, and then even write an article about it. And just, you got a bunch of content off of maybe one 10-minute podcast or hour podcast, however long it is. So, well, thank you, Harley, for that. I hope that was helpful to our listeners. If you have obviously any other questions, you can reach out to us on our website, our contact form, via any of our major social media platforms. But until next time, thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode.